The second single to be rolled out for my second album was It's Not Fair. It's a song about shitty sex, and I think it rang true for a lot of people. I'd never had an orgasm when I wrote that song. Not a single one. Not with someone else and not by myself. I didn't masturbate when I was young, or in my teens, or even for most of my 20s. It's hard for me to unravel why. Certainly, pleasing myself in any way was never high on my list of priorities, and so the idea of actively exploring a zone that was apparently dedicated to pleasure felt impossible. I didn't feel like I'd deserved it. If you spent most of your childhood feeling invisible, then it feels odd to start paying too much attention to yourself when you're on your own. It feels foreign and not right because it's the opposite of what you're used to. Once I started having sex, I didn't come either, and so I thought I was just someone who didn't. Not coming when it comes to sex with a guy is common, especially for young women who are inclined to be undemanding in bed. It seems too bold an ask for many of us, and for some reason, too many of us collectively retreat into passivity. It wasn't a coincidence that my first sexual partners were older than me. 5 years isn't much when you're both adults, but when one of you is a young teenager and the other has hit 20-ish years old, it's a big difference. I'd been watching my dad play a celebrity charity football game with a television star. After the match, the TV star left his football gear in my dad's car, and I was dispatched to his hotel to return it. We arranged to meet in the bar there. He bought me a couple of drinks and then took me up to his room and had sex with me. I was 14, he was 19, but to me, he seemed like someone from a different generation. Afterwards, I felt funny about it. I knew what had happened wasn't right, and so I told a friend of my dad's about it, and he told my dad. I think I wanted my dad to know. I wanted him to make things better. In my teenage head, I wanted Dad to explode with protective anger and to find the TV guy and beat him up. Instead, my dad turned it into a shtick with his friends. They made up elaborate schemes to blackmail the guy, and they rehearsed how they'd call him up and put the shits up him. They may even have gone as far as to make the phone call. I don't know. I just know that my dad turned me having sex with this guy I hardly knew into a joke between him and his mates, and that didn't make me feel good. The dancer who first made a pass at me was very open about sex. She was into S&M and she talked about all this without any shame. She began to wake me up. I thought, oh, okay, let's see what this is about. Maybe this will work. Maybe the reason I haven't been coming all these years is because I'm gay and I've been sleeping with the wrong gender. In fact, I didn't have orgasms with the dancers either, but sex with them got me thinking. We were on tour. I had more time on my hands between shows than I did at home. After each show, wherever we were in the US, I'd hit a strip club. It became my thing on that tour, a way to come down, and somewhere to go so I didn't have to experience the loneliness of a random hotel room. Sometimes I went with the dancers, and sometimes I went on my own. It doesn't matter where you are in America, you can always find a strip club, and they're nearly always great. Between the music, the dollar bills, the energy, and the atmosphere in the room, the clubs have a hip-hop kind of vibe which doesn't feel intimidating even if you're a woman there alone. But going to the clubs wasn't enough for me by that point. Having people fancy me wasn't enough. Getting high and feeling thin, I was eating less and less and people were telling me how great I looked when really all I looked was smaller, and fucking men wasn't enough. Nothing seemed to reach or satisfy me. I remember waking up one morning in those dark days thinking, maybe it's time for heroin, because nothing else is working. I didn't go there. I guess on some level, even in my desperation, I knew that I wouldn't make it back and that taking heroin would have been a slow bid for suicide. Instead, I hired a hooker. It felt like the least personal, coldest, and least loving way to use sex that I could think of. I found my hooker by using Google, as you do. I typed in high-class escorts and the city that I was in, and then picked up the telephone. I asked for a woman. The woman the agency sent arrived quickly, and she stayed the whole night. I liked her, but I also had to get up early and go to several cash machines to get enough cash to pay her. She was expensive. High-class hookers are. I didn't care. I just wanted her to help me feel something. I ended up hiring her 3 or 4 times over a couple of months, so on some level she was scratching some kind of itch, but none of it gave me any real pleasure or made me feel satiated.